Hello everyone, you're listening to Citizens of Earth. It's a podcast about traveling and living abroad and about impact that traveling experience makes on our journey and on our worldview and on our life. And today I'm interviewing Sergey. He's originally from San Francisco. Hi Sergey.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Can I ask you, how did you start to travel initially? What was your first big travel?
My father is a lawyer, and every 7 years his firm gave him a vacation for 3 months. And so when I was younger, we went to Africa and Europe for the first time, and I was able to see other people, other cultures, other languages, foods, everything. And it was the impetus to want to travel more as I grew older.
What age you were when you went to Africa?
5.
5?
years old.
So you don't remember much?
It's not a continuous stream of memory, but there are impactful moments that have a big influence.
What struck you the most? Do you remember from childhood? What was the most noticeable contrast between US and places you went with your father?
Interactions of people in the street. In America, usually you walk by people and you don't say anything. Maybe you don't even acknowledge that they're walking. You just walk right by. And in many other places that I was traveling to with my father at that time, people were much more communicative in the street, in their interactions.
Even with strangers?
Even with strangers, yeah. And this held true even later on in my other travels as well.
Okay, let's move on to your other travels.
Okay.
So when did you first go to Eastern Europe?
I was 22. After I finished undergraduate school, I volunteered in Romania and Belarus on archaeological excavations.
Was it adventurous?
Yes. In both excavations, we were living in the woods, cooking over fires and living in tents for stretches of 5 weeks, drinking the local liquor, the moonshine, eating the local foods, trying to learn the languages, and it was great.
It was great.
Yeah, it was
I know that
fantastic.
many people who go for such kind of things eventually become disappointed because they expected adventure and they end up just digging the whole day something, and that's not what they expected. How was it for you?
I think I went in not really expecting anything, and I think this helped because everything was new, everything was exciting, just even the little things,
Because you didn't have any expectations,
Yeah.
It went very good for you. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I think I just expected simply that I would interact with people in a human way. For example, the other people I was digging with were also students from other universities or in Minsk or Bucharest, and so I expected it to be very much like any other student interaction.
Can I ask you, the whole team was foreign, or there were some locals?
In Bucharest, there were 6 foreigners and maybe 10 locals, but in Belarus, it was a whole class from Minsk University, and then only 5 foreigners, so it was a much larger percentage of locals.
So you interacted with people from Minsk University a lot,
Yeah. So I didn't learn too much Romanian, but I learned a lot of phrases in Russian or in Belarusian as well, because I was hanging out with them more. spending more time.
I always curious how do US people find interaction with people from Eastern Europe different, because obviously culture is very different. So how was impressions for you?
I think my first impression was that, especially in Belarus, people are more direct. And this is evident in the language with the imperative with commands. People say what they want and say what they feel, as opposed to here in America, people, you ask, "Oh, how are you doing?" "I'm doing fine," and really their house just burned down, but they won't say that. They don't want to burden you with it. But I found it in Eastern Europe, it was much more direct. I appreciated that, It was refreshing. Sometimes difficult, but refreshing.
And how long did you stay in Eastern Europe for this archaeological project?
It was about a little less than 4 months in total.
And then you went back home?
That's correct. I went back home to try and save money to travel again.
So you already knew that you want to travel again?
Of course, yeah.
From very beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I met a lot of people that I wanted to see again in Europe and America, and I realized that there was still so much to see, even in Eastern Europe, let alone the entire world. So
I'm curious, do you remember what exactly triggered this passion for traveling? From what point you started to be aware that you really want to do it again and again?
I think the language aspect, not being able to communicate with someone at all besides hand gestures and smiles and things, and then even just learning a few words, it immediately bridges a gap and just builds this immediate connection. And so I think, and once I knew that, I knew I wanted to travel again and try and learn other languages. And I was very jealous of many Europeans, because they grow up, and maybe speak 3 languages, and many people here in the States, speak 1. English.
I see. Sergey, can you please tell me what was your next trip?
I got a job on another archaeological excavation in Israel, in Haifa, and I went there for 2 summers, 2009 and 2010.
How does it even work? Like, you saying it like it's so easy, like to get a job on archaeological project.
Yeah.
And
Well, so like I said, I was a volunteer on the digs in Romania and Belarus, and so I had to pay to be there. But so with this experience, you can get a job where they pay you. They don't even really pay you. They pay for your plane ticket and your food and house and your plane ticket back. So it's not like a salary. You're good enough for them to need you.
Your salary is your new experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Please tell us, how was the Israel project?
It was great. Very much like the projects in Belarus and Romania. Just another culture, another style of living, language, another kind of interaction with people. And I was in this circumstance. I was able to see part of the ongoing conflict in Israel.
What years were these?
2009 and 2010.
What was your impression about conflict?
So I was digging in Haifa, which is on the coast in the north. But I was doing traveling into Jerusalem and the West Bank as well, which is on the eastern side.
And what was your impression about the conflict?
It's interesting because, like you said, I'm from San Francisco. We're a large Jewish community, and being an American, there's this relationship that the American government has with the Israeli government.
Well, I believe it's very friendly relationship.
Yeah. Pretty friendly, yeah. And so growing up, I had this impression that that the conflict was very one-sided, that there was a good guy and a bad guy, and there wasn't anything more to it, you know. Kind of vilifying the Palestinians and Arabs in general and Muslims in general, and then you go there and you realize this is not it's not the case. It's not true at all. I mean, this is false.
Can you please tell how this shift in your perspective on this conflict started and continued?
So it started when simply going into the West Bank and riding in taxis with Palestinians, talking with Palestinians, and
In what language did you interact?
English.
In English.
I didn't know any Arabic at this time, but some of them knew Arabic and were very helpful in trying to direct me to places I wanted to go, or where to eat, or anything like this. So, yeah, I was just able to see how what I had heard and about the conflict was false, essentially.
So, Palestinian people you met basically provided the other point of view.
Yeah, I mean they showed me that my perception had been wrong, and because of that fact, motivated me to learn, and not just
To learn what?
to learn about the issues at hand, and not just about the Palestine-Israeli conflict, about any kind of issues, whether that's some foreign policy between the U.S. government and another government, or territory disputes between two nations. It made me want to be sure in my research and my investigation that, you know, I wasn't just relying on a media source or a newspaper in the United States or something.
So you developed some critical thinking about any political events, basically, yeah?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, Sergey, can you please tell us how did you start to learn Arabic? What was motivation, and how it in generally went for you?
So I needed to find a job again after Israel, working in Israel.
Because your project ended?
Right, exactly. Project ended. I returned home, and I decided to teach English abroad. And I decided, I had to choose between whether I wanted to learn Russian or Arabic, and then move there. I decided with Arabic.
Why did you consider these two options and not French or Spanish?
I figured they were more important to kind of the United States in terms of geopolitics, as opposed to French or Spanish or Chinese, the other UN languages. Although, I mean, Chinese would be beneficial in other areas much more than Russian or Arabic, for like the economics or trade.
I see. And so you started to learn here.
Yeah. So I started studying Arabic at San Francisco State University, and then I moved to Saudi Arabia to teach English, and continued learning Arabic there. Although it was quite difficult. It's a very closed-off society, as opposed to other parts of the Middle East. So I had to find work elsewhere again, because I didn't want to stay in Saudi Arabia. So I taught English in other places in the Middle East.
How long did you stay in Saudi Arabia and other places? Can you please enumerate? Because it's really interesting. I've never been there.
So I spent 6 months in Saudi Arabia. It was 4 months in Riyadh, 2 months in Ta'if, near Mecca, and I taught English in the West Bank for 3 months. I taught in Lebanon for 2 months. I worked in refugee camps for 5 months in Jordan.
Refugee camps.
Syrian refugee camps
Syrian.
From the start of their civil war.
What year was that?
2014, in the fall of 2014, or fall in the northern hemisphere.
What was your impression about refugee situation? Because you one of people who witnessed it personally.
Well, I taught Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, and I worked with the Syrian refugees in Jordan. And one of the common attributes, I guess, of the refugees is this spirit, this kind of indomitable spirit, like a refusal to stop, to give in, and it's very inspiring. You see these people and their struggles, and it's inspiring. You're just kind of in awe that these people are still carrying on and living lives and normal, as normal as one could imagine in such situations, smiling, laughing.
Continuing to live their life, no matter what.
Exactly.
And how long was the total period of your teaching in Middle East?
Almost 2 years. Part of that was the aid work with in Jordan. So I guess maybe just 1.5 years of English teaching.
What country and people of what country made the biggest impression in this region? Or you can't pick?
Well, I think for me personally, the living in the West Bank had the most profound impact on me. Partly because of what I had mentioned earlier, coming from my background here in the United States, and having that view turned upside down, but also seeing people living under an occupation where there's arbitrary violence, and kind of with no hope in sight. Civil wars end, but this, well, at least the occupation since 1967, and people being uprooted and displaced since 1948. So, this is much more prolonged. And like I said, they're still living, life as best they can, as much as they want to.
So I take it as that spirit of people struck you the most.
Yeah, and not just their attitude towards their situation, but their attitude towards me in terms of their generosity, their kindness, their sympathies for a traveler.
What was the attitude towards you? Because you're from US.
Right. It was, everywhere you go. And this is for across the Middle East. People invite you into their homes for dinner and tea, just to show their hospitality and generosity.
As one hitchhiker told me once, once you reached Kazakhstan, you don't need money.
Yeah.
You just. And, so I understood that your travel life and your life as a teacher in Middle East completely shifted your perception of geopolitical processes. But I'm curious on personal level, what was the noticeable change? How did Sergey before travel to Middle East differs from today's Sergey?
I think I would like to think that I care more about things that need to be cared about, and I care less about things that are less important. So in a sense, I feel like I've really made a good prioritization of what is important in life for me. For example, I used to be a huge National Football League here in the United States, NFL fan, and now I just don't care about sport. I mean, I enjoy watching sports, but I don't care who wins or who's playing on whose team.
So that things. Priority dropped.
Yeah,
and which one raised?
I guess learning languages became a priority for me, to be able to communicate with as many people in the world as I can. I'm very fortunate that I'm a native English speaker, and English is the most common second language or other language in the world. So this helps, but it's not enough for me. I need to learn other languages or pieces of other languages just to make connections with people. I want to say that my experience in the Middle East, in terms of having the people there being incredibly friendly and hospitable and
nobody cared that you're from the US.
Nobody cared.
Because nobody takes it personally.
Right. Yeah. Right. People were angry at the US president and the US government, but they were able to separate this from the American people, which I thought was incredible, because a lot of times that doesn't happen. People are, if they're angry at a government, then they are angry at the people as well, and this was not the case. But this idea of generosity is found in Turkey and the Balkans. I mean, people in Bosnia-Herzegovina and Montenegro and Serbia, Bulgaria, and just as generous and kind and welcoming.
With open hands.
Yeah, it's just it's pretty special being able to travel and see how to see these kinds of things.
I often heard that poor people are more welcoming and generous than people who have lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Can you vouch for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I ate with people who had nothing, and they filled my plate, and their plates were almost empty, kind of thing. Yeah, it's absolutely true. Absolutely.
Okay, and before we end, it's obvious that your traveling life and your experience in other countries changed you a lot. And what would be your message or your advice to people who hesitating or considering going on a big trip, like any kind of a big trip, volunteering or just traveling as a backpacker? What would you say?
Well, first, if you are unsure, just go. So travel, do it. If you're scared or unsure, just do it anyway. Second, make sure you travel with open eyes and open ears.
What that means?
You're always observing. You're observing more than you are influencing. So when you're sitting down with people, listen more than you speak. There's too much to learn from these places and these people. Of course, interact and have dialogue and share your opinions and views, but don't go somewhere and try and put your expectations or your beliefs or your wants there. Accept what is there and enjoy it for what it is and the beauty that it has to offer you. Um, yeah, and then I would say to when you come back, share your experiences.
Thank you, Sergey, and thank you everyone for listening. It was Citizens of Earth podcast about traveling, about living abroad, and about the impact that experience makes on our worldview and on our life. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, iTunes channel, and check out our next episode. Thank you.